This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Sports Files is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
My guest today on Sports Files is the voice of the University of Memphis Tigers, Dave Woloshin. He'll answer to the name Wolo. He'll answer to the name Boat. But most Tigers fans know him simply by his full name, Dave Woloshin. And Dave has been a part of University of Memphis athletics for nearly 3 decades. And this year marks his 17th consecutive season as the men's basketball and football play-by-play broadcaster on the Tigers' flagship station, WREC Radio. Prior to his current job, Dave called Tigers games on local television. He has also done play-by-play for the River Kings ice hockey team and several pro soccer teams that have called Memphis home. The extremely busy and versatile Woloshin has also called games for ESPN, Time Warner, and other networks, and has been a fixture on local radio for decades. Today we go inside Memphis Tigers athletics with the man who has seen it all from the inside and out. Dave Woloshin, next on Sports Files. Dave, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
We appreciate it. Before we get into the football and, of course, the upcoming Tigers basketball season, for those who don't know you, and you've been around for a while here in Memphis now, so you're old hat to many, but for those who don't know, growing up, who were your broadcasting influences?
Oh, man, that's easy. A guy named Jack Brickhouse. You ever hear, hey, hey? And he did the Bears. He did the Cubs and the White Sox on television. He was everything. He was a guy who was from Peoria, Illinois, started off when he was a kid. He got to Chicago. He probably was a broadcaster of major league sports in a lot of different entities, everything but hockey, for I would bet 40 or 50 years. Yeah, he was an amazing guy, a unique voice, sort of a higher pitched voice than some of the others of that era who all had those baritone, bass, beautiful voices.
Right.
His was different, filled with excitement. He was a terrific guy.
So you're growing up in Chi-Town. Did you know at a young age this is the field you wanted to get into?
In about 4th grade, I figured I was either going to play sports because I loved them so much, or I was going to talk about it.
Sound like me.
By about 7th grade, I think the realization hit that I was going to be talking.
Exactly. Did you always think play-by-play, or was it the route I started, local news, because I know you did that as well? Was it play-by-play and you thought, let me go through local news and I'll eventually get around to that? Or was it, let me start in the local 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock broadcast?
No, I think even though I did take the path of 6 and 10, I always thought I would be a play-by-play guy. That was really, when I was a young guy, I would turn off the television and do the games over the TV myself. Or when I was like 6 from school, I would turn on the radio and keep the scorebook. So I knew exactly that I wanted to be involved in going to the games every day. And then it was terrible because when I got into 6 and 10, I couldn't stand it. I didn't mind being the reporter because you went to the events, and I really liked doing live shots, which is pretty close to doing play-by-play. But I didn't like sitting in a studio all day long to write 2.5 or 3 minutes, with which that part was fun when you actually did the delivery, but the other stuff was not my cup of tea, and I didn't want to be confined in an office. That was just not me.
Can you distance yourself from the team? In other words, emotionally, you've called a lot, unfortunately, of losses for the University of Memphis football program, a lot of wins for the basketball program. Can you distance yourself, or does that affect you as well, and maybe even how you call a game?
Well, I would love to tell you, because of my journalistic upbringing at the great Southern Illinois University, that you stay objective and that you distance yourself. And it's easy when you're doing ESPN games, of which I did a whole bunch.
Neutral.
You're neutral, and you're just hoping for a good game, and you get to talk to both the coaches, and you try to figure out which way it's going to go, but you don't have any stake in it. And when you are the voice of a team, and remember, I started doing U of M stuff on television in 1986, so this goes back a long, long way. You get to know each guy, and the longer a coach stays around, the more you become connected with that coach. You really like that person. For instance, I really liked John Calipari because there was nobody more exciting or more interesting than him, or for that matter, Tommy West, who stuck around for a long time. And now with Josh, you know, I feel like he's a kid brother almost. And I just really want him to do well. I want him to get those top 25 wins, to advance to at least the Sweet 16. So you start to care more and more about those people, and you can't separate people that easily from the team. So yeah, the more you become invested, the harder it is to do that. And when you've been around since '86, I'm pretty invested.
All right, we'll get to Josh and basketball a little bit more down the road here, but let me start with football. Justin Fuente is a new face, only his second season, a little bit past the midway point. What do you see so far in Justin and in this football program? Is it on the upswing?
Well, let's go back. If you really want to understand how tough this has been, go back the 2 years. I just talked about how long I've been in this business.
Right.
I was a student broadcaster in 1971, and I was involved. So I've been in college broadcasting in some sense since '71. There has never been a coach so out of it, so out of touch as Larry Porter. So you have to understand that when Justin Fuente got here, Memphis was way, way behind. Talent-wise, scheme-wise, culture, which means the attitude around the organization, was so far behind that I'm amazed that Justin Fuente is where he is. You know, there's the old axiom, you lose big when you're trying to rehab a program, then you lose close, then you win close, and hopefully you win big if you really complete the rehab job. He's clearly at lose close. Now, is that a great thing? No, but if you take the perspective of
From
how
where you
far
were, yeah.
back behind they were, yeah, I think it, because I didn't think he would be competing with UCF, and they should have beaten Central Florida. That was like the perfect storm, the wrong way. He's competing with Cincinnati. I'm not saying he should have won that game, but they were within 6 with 5.5 to go in the game. You know, to compete with those kinds of programs, that says something. And, he's done it in, 17 games?
But do you ever see it where there will be a point that Memphis football on a week-in, basis is competitive with these teams year in, year out? Do you ever see where we're not talking about rebuilding, getting more players, changing coaches, you feel confident that Memphis is going to win 7, 8, 9 games a year?
I think you can get to that point because I think, one, the facilities are being put in place right now where you can compete certainly within your own conference. And I think the right folks are there. I think between Tom Bowen and Ren Baker and Justin Fuente, and believe me, this staff, if you can keep a Barry Odom and you can keep a Daryl Dickey, then I think you've really got a shot with that continuity to get this program to a good place. Look, Justin Fuente didn't have to take this job. He could have waited a little bit longer at TCU and gone somewhere else. He thought there was definitely promise here, and I think with this new conference, certainly there is.
How many more wins going forward the rest of the season? They're 1-6 going into UT Martin.
Well, let's just say there's 5 games left. 4 of them are winnable. The Louisville game, that would be an absolute shock. Although Central Florida beat them, and you should have beaten Central Florida. But let's just say you win 3 and you match last year 4 with a much better schedule, a much more competitive ledger, then I think you've seen progress.
All right, let's make the switch to basketball.
Okay.
A whole different set of circumstances.
Absolutely.
What are your expectations personally, and what should fans' expectations be going into this season? Memphis ranked 13th in both the coaches and AP poll going into the season.
Well, let me start by saying, for the first time, I think Josh has a schedule that will best prepare him for March. And I think that's been something that has been missing. Some of that has just been unlucky. You play Michigan, you think you're going to play Duke, and then you don't play any other really good teams because your conference schedule is so bad and you hadn't set up that many. And then these preseason tournaments. You start with VCU, you think you're playing Duke again, and you play a Minnesota team that's not ranked, and this kid comes out of nowhere, a Memphian, scores 40-something on you,
right.
never missed, and you didn't get to play the good teams that would have upped your stock. This year, even if he were to lose early in Orlando, which I don't think he will, he's still going to play Oklahoma State, he's still going to play Florida. And then you've got this conference. So he is going to be much better prepared. To me, I think the true measure, and I know Josh is going to hate me for this, the true measure is going to be, will you advance in March? That's the most important thing, because whether it's fair or not, Memphis won 30 games last year, and nobody's talking about anything except the fact that they got killed by a very good Michigan State team that was better than they were at the end of the year. Part of that was they played them too early. If they had really been judged on 30 wins, they would have been a better seed, and they would have played them in the next weekend. But they didn't. So now you got to hope that you win one or two of these critical games early, and a few in the conference schedule, like winning at home against the Louisvilles, the Cincinnatis, the Connecticuts, the Temples. You win those games at home, your seed's going to be good, and you have a chance to go to the next weekend. And then I think he's got to get to the next weekend to just shut everybody up.
I would agree. All right, let's take a couple of minutes to break down this team. Obviously, there's two factions. There's this heralded young freshman class, and there's this veteran backcourt that now includes Michael Dixon Jr. to go along with Joe Jackson, Jaren Johnson, Chris Crawford. How good can that backcourt be?
Well, I think that backcourt can be the best in the country. I don't know of any team that has four guards that, if you look potentially, they could all play pro. All of them might end up in the NBA. I'm not saying they will, but they have a chance, and then they will all play professionally and make a living. When's the last time you saw a team that could make that statement? There's not many at all. And so they could be terrific. Now, if you want to go to the freshmen, you got Austin Nichols, and he was the one guy in the Baylor scrimmage, the secret scrimmage,
right,
that apparently was pretty darn good, because Shaq Goodwin didn't get to play much, sprained his toe early on, and Josh decided to rest him. And Josh said he could have played the last scrimmage, but he chose not to play him so that he's ready now, and there's nothing that carries over at all. You're talking about somebody between Shaq Goodwin, Austin Nichols, Karan Iverson, Nick King, and we can go on and on and on here, Woodson, that one of those has to step up and play. If two of them do, and I'll throw David Pelham in there, then you got a shot at really having some great success.
Who is the key player?
The key player is probably, this is going to sound weird, David Pelham. I'll tell you why. David Pelham is a big guy who doesn't need the basketball. You've got so many guys that can score, that are going to want numbers. This guy doesn't care. All he wants to do is defend, rebound, and win. He was at George Washington. They took buses. They didn't take private jets.
Right.
This is a whole new thing for him. He doesn't have that ego. He just wants to win. He's a smart, mature kid. He's got to come through in that role. If he does, then I think this could be a terrific year.
There's nobody on that team that can do what DJ did, but somebody's going to have to pick up the pieces, because DJ, as you know, would save a lot of defensive lapses with his ability to block shots.
No, he was an unbelievable, terrific game changer, one of those unique guys. We'll never see another guy like DJ, honestly. We had one other one that was sort of in his class, Michael Wilson, that could jump out of the gym. But Michael Wilson actually came in heralded. DJ Steffens, he wasn't going anywhere. And then his senior year, he's all-conference, all-defensive player of the league. It's a great story, but you don't have to have one guy. If you collectively play defense, as quick as this team is, as many ball hawks between Dixon and Jaren Johnson's a great one-on-one defender. Chris Crawford's a good defender. Joe's as quick as it gets. Collectively, these guys should play good defense. You don't need one guy as insurance if you take care of business on the front end.
All right, got a final few minutes. We're going to get to our 5 for the road to wrap things up, find out a little bit more about Dave Woloshin. Before we do that, though, off the top of your head, give me the 3 greatest Tiger football players, the 3 greatest Tiger basketball players that you've called games for.
Oh, that I've called. So Harry Shue isn't in there.
Right.
Bob Rush is not in there.
Games that you've called.
Well, the first 2 are pretty easy. Danny Wimprine and D'Angelo Williams.
Okay.
Those 2. And there could be a receiver in there. Duke Calhoun was.
Did you call Russell Copeland's games?
I did on TV.
So I'm talking about radio.
Russell Copeland, just the radio. So the last 16 or 17 years. There's a defensive guy in there that I'm missing. But there's somebody on the defensive side. But those two guys offensively, that was magic.
And basketball.
Penny Hardaway. Now, does it count like if I did coaches shows or whatever? Because Keith Lee.
No, of course. And we're not asking for the greatest Tigers, but the ones you've called, games you've called. You've called Derrick Rose's games. You've called.
Oh yeah. So if we do that, Derrick Rose, Chris Douglas Roberts, Penny Hardaway.
Not a bad trio.
No. Is there any team in America that wouldn't want any of those three guys?
Nobody would turn them down. All right, Dave, we like to end all our interviews with something called Five for the Road. So you don't have to, dig too deep to give us an answer. Maybe the first thing that comes to your mind. And I should know the answer to this, having known you for many, many years. Favorite professional sports team?
Come on. Chicago Cubs. Could be the Bulls, could be the Blackhawks, could be the Bears. The Bears are probably number 2. I love the Bears.
But it is the Cubs.
Probably the Cubs.
So you have suffered a long,
and I love the White Sox
time,
too.
my friend.
And I know people hate me for that.
All right. Favorite professional athlete of all time?
Can I say there's a tie?
I'll give you a tie.
Because they're both old timers. Ernie Banks, Let's Play 2, first baseman for the Cubs, shortstop for the Cubs originally.
Right.
And Bobby Hull, who was the first
Golden Jet
hockey player to ever score 50 goals in a single season. Now there's Dick Butkus, there's Gale Sayers. Let's not forget those two guys. Oh, and by the way, a guy named MJ.
Yeah, MJ not on your list. Let's talk music now. Favorite music or musician or group? Who's the one?
Gosh.
If you had a CD, boom, that's who you're popping in the car.
Well, this is going to be odd to you because you go back and I've got like 20,000 tunes on my iPod.
Right.
But I'll listen if I want to be in a good mood. I'll listen to like Pablo Cruz. You ever hear of Pablo Cruz?
Sure. We'll find
or
a way.
I'll put Jackson Brown on if I want to be melancholy.
So you're going back to the 70s.
Yeah,
like
so it's all 70s stuff.
Okay. Final 30 seconds. Favorite movie of all time?
The Graduate.
With Dustin Hoffman and Bancroft.
And Bancroft.
Favorite TV show of all time?
All in the Family.
All in the Family.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go the way
MASH?
I go. No, Seinfeld.
Oh, I love Seinfeld. All in the Family is a little generation. I'm a little older than you.
A little bit. Hey, Dave, always a pleasure.
Always.
Thank you so much. Of course, you can listen to Dave on WREC. Call the games this year for Tigers basketball. And, of course, he's mid-season calling games for the football team. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, it's our overtime segment. Year in and year out, the sports world produces its share of colorful characters. From coaches to owners to the players themselves, we have seen it all. Then there's Roy Adams. Anyone who has any knowledge of college football, especially in the South, knows the name Roy Adams. The 75-year-old retired restaurant and real estate developer is a controversial figure, to say the least. Adams openly roots for the University of Tennessee, where he graduated from in 1963. And for more than 4 decades, openly admits to being a proud booster, one who has given gifts to players. Adams has no remorse in breaking some NCAA rules, and in fact guesstimates he has given players in excess of $400,000 in cash, food, clothes, and even automobiles. Today, Roy is out of the booster business, but it hasn't distanced him from the game of football. Each Saturday in the fall, he hosts the most amazing indoor party for fans of the game. 36 televisions, 5 large TV viewing rooms, restaurant-equipped kitchen, and fully equipped wet bar. And he pays for it all. Friends of Roy, including former players, coaches, politicians, dignitaries, and businessmen, have all made their way to Roy's humble abode, although humble may be bad terminology. A few weeks ago, I paid my first visit to the party of all parties and brought a camera along to talk to Roy and take in the atmosphere. Roy, so why do you do this?
Greg, I have been blessed with friends all my life, from the time of the University of Tennessee, before that at Senate Page, and working on the staff of Senator Kefauver and Gore in Washington, that friends have meant an awful lot to me. And so it's just an extenuation, a continuation of the personality of who I am. The good book says it's better to give than to receive. And I've tried to do that my whole life. It's better to give than to receive. And if friends leave my home on Saturday night and they've had a good time and they're stuffed or what like that, then I'm elated.
One thing is opening up your house for friends to come over and watch sports. The other thing is what you're doing, which is unbelievable. People, I don't think, can comprehend exactly what's going on in your house. So you've really taken it to extremes, Roy.
Well, it started out, we had this room here, for instance, was a garage. I converted with a big screen, the TV, where you had projectors or what like that. And then we've had many TVs. I had a Goodyear store, and GE, we were the largest distributor of GE in America, Goodyear was, and my store was #1 in America for many years. And so each TV came out, stuff like that. I got addiction to having numerous TVs, more than you should have, to watch every network or every game, stuff like that. And then as football has expanded in popularity and DirecTV came into town with more TV channels, more sporting events, stuff like that, then I want enough TVs in my home to carry all the things that's out there on the airways.
You have a diverse group that come here to watch games on Saturdays, and all you care about is that they're sports fans. They're coming here to watch football games. Talk about some of the people that you've had over here. I know that you've had former players and former coaches and executives.
No one is more important than anybody else, but Mr. Michael Heisley, former owner of the Grizzlies, came in, and Chris Wallace, general manager of the Grizzlies. David Keith, the Hollywood actor, flew in, whatnot. Just a lot of individuals, but they're no more important than anybody else that comes into my home. The thing that was funny about Michael Heisley is they said, and he's one of the world's richest men, higher on the Forbes list of wealthier Americans than Fred Smith, FedEx here. And they said, Mr. Heisley, I bet you don't have this many TVs in your home. He said, no, but I sure don't, but I bet Roy didn't spend $110,000 on one TV like I did.
New York Times comes out and does a story on you. When they contacted you, the New York Times, what did you think?
Well, I was curious as to why, what I like that, but when I deal with media, as I had to during the Logan Young affairs and appeared on ESPN nationally, and the book Bragging Rights, and it's had 2 chapters in there about me, stuff like that. I answer questions, and I don't ask questions of you or anybody else, the reasons why you're doing anything. I just try to oblige him. As a result of that story in the New York Times last Saturday, I've had 15 or 20 radio sports stations across the country want me to go, and I refuse to do it. I can't turn Paul Feinbaum down because he's a Memphian, a longtime friend, and I appeared on one of them in New York because they knew a friend of mine, stuff like that. But I just live, enjoy life.
How do you accept criticism? Because there have been some that certainly have criticized you, and obviously you're a known booster of the University of Tennessee and other schools, and you've come out and you've helped out student athletes. What we know, it's certainly against the NCAA regulations, at least how it is now. So people have been critical of you. How do you react when those criticisms happen?
Well, as a Memphian, I'm proud of all the Memphis athletes when they go to SEC school. And for many years, these high school coaches, if a kid signs to SEC school, they'll bring him by, and I'll shake his hand, I'll give him $100, stuff like that. Ole Miss or Alabama or what I like that. That's fine, because I'm proud to be a Memphian. I figure if Memphis is good enough for Fred Smith to live, he can afford to live any place in the world, then it certainly ought to be good enough, and I should be proud of it as Roy H. Adams.
Do you think players should get more than what they get right now?
No, because if people only knew how much players get, they'd be astounded.
So they get enough money, they don't use it in the right way.
That's right.
But you're saying that you're still going to slap them or I don't know if you're still doing it, but 100 here and 100 there. So you still think it's good enough to do that?
For 10 years I've avoided, but they still look me up, call me, come by, stuff like that. But these athletes are not hurting. That's the greatest misnomer, because if they did away with dorms, unfortunately, many years ago, and so they get $1,000, $1,200 a month to live off campus. They split a room, apartment, and then they still eat on campus.
Right.
But not so they still do. And then other events they get money for, stuff like that. Pell Grants, $5,300 a year. These guys are rolling in money.
Roy, real quick, what do you think about Butch Jones at Tennessee?
I think in my lifetime, excluding General Neyland, he's the best coach that I've experienced.
Wow.
And he's too good to be true. University of Tennessee is difficult to win because we don't have in-state talent. You win with athletes. and I won't go in that story. But again, he is a Walmart person, not a Wall Street person.
Right.
His dad was a police chief. He's worked his way up. He works 18 hours a day. It's not bull. He actually works. He's too good to be true. I'm more elated, feel prouder for the University of Tennessee, be a UT alum than I've ever been in my life.
All right, final question, short answer. I know it's a little morbid here, but when you've passed and moved on, what do you want the obituary to say about Roy Adams?
If people say he gave more than he received, I'd be appreciative of those remarks.
Hey, Roy, thanks for having us over.
you, Greg.
We appreciate it.
Oh, great. Fine.
And our thanks to Roy for allowing us to invade his space and give you a taste of what his infamous Saturday college football parties are all about. And that'll do it for this week's show. Remember, to see any of our previous shows, head to our website at WKNO.org and click on KNO Tonight. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.